right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. We are so glad you're tuning in with us from wherever you are and however you are. Like, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. My name's Caleb. I am a startup junkie, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Amerine. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going great. And I have to say, I'm ready for the simulation we're having for being on the surface of the sun or Venus to end.
I agree.
Hot summer. I am ready for this to be over. I'm ready for some fall weather.
It's fall.
Who have we got today? I'm pretty stoked. Give us the lowdown here.
Absolutely. So today we have with us Luke Owings. Luke is the VP of Abilitie, or VP of Product at Abilitie, a leadership development company. I'm going to stop there as far as the description of the company because I'm going to let him give us the story of Abilitie. Luke, how's it going?
Hey, great to be here. Great to be here, Caleb and Jeff. It must be hot down there. I'm up in the Northeast. I'm in New England, so it's a little bit chillier here, but I have to come down to Texas in 2 weeks. And so I am not looking forward to it.
Oh, man.
Get ready to melt. Yeah.
Bring the sunscreen and don't go outside. That's the message.
Yeah, sunscreen indoors. So yeah.
It's
hot. It's real hot. No doubt about it.
Oof, that doesn't sound nice. But thank you for having me here, Caleb and Jeff. You know, I'm the VP of Product at Abilitie. So I oversee all of our development of leadership development programs, which we run as our broader company for the biggest companies in the world, for the Fortune 100. We run their high potential. We run their executive leadership programs. We run them across the board. And we've done that for a number of years. I also get the chance to oversee our Invited MBA offering, which is, I think, what we're here to talk with you guys about. So it's our part-time mini MBA that is really much more targeted at entrepreneurs, really much more targeted at those who are making transitions in their careers. And it was our take on how we took what was the world-class learning we were working on with clients, world-class simulations, world-class gamified learning on business acumen, strategic leadership, and management, and put that into the core that people need to learn as they run their own business. And so our 12-week part-time invited MBA, I think, is what got us interested in you and what got you interested in us. And I can tell any of the stories around how we got there, any of this stuff, but I'm just pumped to be here. So Caleb, Jeff, thanks for having me.
Well, one of the things we like to follow up with is your origin story. You know, how did where'd you come from? How'd you get to Abilitie, et cetera? So give us a little bit of that background.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it depends on how far back you want to go back. But my great uncle was Italian. And in 1933, he was the world heavyweight boxing champion.
Oh, no kidding.
That's awesome.
Cool. And it next showed up in the sporting world in 2006 when I was playing basketball in college. And I was on the SportsCenter top 10 as the number 6 play. You might have noticed it when the guy from Oklahoma, Jabari Brown, was dunking over me and I was going like this. So depending on how much of a SportsCenter fan you were back then.
Should we hyperlink that into the show notes, that clip?
I got in just before everything was on YouTube, so don't worry about that. More seriously, if we come a little bit further along, I've had a pretty long and disparate career. I call it a mosaic career, all in the field of education, all in the field of leadership development. So I started my career at one of the huge consulting firms at McKinsey, spent a few years there, went back and got my MBA at Harvard Business School and started teaching. From there, I've been doing education nonstop since. So I ran operations at a startup called Fullbridge that did month-long business boot camps for a few years in 2011 to 2014. I went and joined another startup and was their head of people. So I oversaw recruiting, learning and development, saw how hard it is to actually learn in a 500-person startup organization that's growing really fast. Left there, went and did some independent things around the world, worked in East Africa for a while, helping build companies over there, worked all over the place. And then rejoined McKinsey and built out our McKinsey Academy, which was our client offering for Fortune 100 clients about how you do leadership development for your top 100 executives. So I did that for 3 years as an associate partner at McKinsey, and then left and joined Abilitie. And for the last couple of years, I've been, I guess it's coming up on that. I've been the head of product for Abilitie. And what we do is we build extended leadership development programs for our clients with simulation and experiential learning at the core. So think SimCity, running a business, think things like that. And so I've gotten to lead our efforts on that front and gotten to evolve and build what spun out of that, which is our Invited MBA. So long and kind of mosaic type of thing, always around this concept of how do you get development in the workforce wherever you may be.
Before we move into kind of the nitty gritty, and there's a lot of stuff to unpack with Abilitie, a very interesting concept. I'm going to ask you a question that I haven't asked a lot of people on the episode, and that is, how did being a competitive D1 athlete inform your career trajectory? I mean, I've got my own views of what a differentiator that can be, but talk to us about how that experience set the foundation or informed what you've done since.
Yeah, man, something that I reflect on a lot, particularly because I stay in touch with my team, right? It's one of the beautiful things. And I always say, I don't miss the games as much, but I miss that locker room, right? Yeah. I miss that locker room. It was such a beautiful thing to go and work every day. And so if I had to say kind of three things for you, Jeff, right? Like number one is it taught me not to be afraid of losing, right? We had some good years. We played in the NCAA tournament my freshman year, played Texas, had a 14 seed, sat on selection Sunday, got to jump up off the couch and be like, we're going to Denver. Mm-hmm. And then had a couple of down years. And, you know, when you're in a small town, the newspaper is all about what's wrong with you, what's going on. Mm-hmm. So it taught me, A, not to be afraid to fail. Right? B, it taught me just how important the team around you is, no matter what. And I played basketball, you know, it's not an individual sport, and great entrepreneurship is not an individual sport either. The team you put around you is just so important, and you better want to spend time with them, and you better feel like they complement you in many ways. And like basketball is all about that. And then lastly, it just taught me like, it takes work. It takes work. It takes work. In college, when you're playing a sport, you're doing academics. Hopefully you're dating every once in a while. I had a few dates back in college, and you're doing practice 3 hours a day, right? Like, and you just put in the work, row the boat. And I think I often hire college athletes as well because they know how to do that. They care. They don't mind when they fail. They'll push on. They have a team, and they have a team mindset, and they put in the work. So I think that's probably my answer.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And we've seen that. I mean, we've seen that as a pattern match. There's a pretty fast growing startup out here called Movista. April Segerbrook, one of the founders there. She was a D1 female athlete, basketball at the Razorbacks. And she said a lot of the same things. I mean,
nice.
It'll be a differentiator in their hires if somebody has been competitive college athlete.
And ironically, actually, this isn't ironic. Sorry for interrupting you there, Jeff. No. The other thing that I look at on this, and probably even more than the athletes who I like to hire, I love to hire somebody who is a manager of the team, of the team, because you want to talk about a job that gets so underthanked, but is so crucial. My best friend growing up ended up actually managing the Maryland basketball team. And he is probably one of the hardest workers I know. He just got elected a partner at EY, which I'm really proud of for him. And I would literally ask him to join me on anything in my life, right? Like people who are willing to put their ego to the side and build something for the community. I freaking love it.
No, it's great. And I agree. I think having that, the willingness to do the grind makes a lot of difference. So you guys have built this great company, and you've got huge reach. And how is that possible? I mean, talk about sort of the trajectory for Abilitie and how you guys have become as an incumbent with a lot of blue chip companies. How have you managed to do that?
Well, you know, it only takes 10 years of hard work to become an overnight success, right? And it's so true. You know, I give so much credit to our CEO and founder, Bjorn Billhart, who I've been working with in some way, shape, or form since 2015, but joined full-time last year. And he is the classic bootstrapping entrepreneur. He did it through building up client relationships, through managing those client relationships. He did it through actually when Abilitie first, in its first permutation, was a company called Inspire, which was building custom solutions. And so he built that up over the course of a number of years, and then realized that there was a limit to what that could grow, and then had the courage to say, okay, let me spin out Abilitie, which maintains these client relationships, what I bootstrapped and valued, and turns a lot of our offerings into something that's product. And so it scales better. And so in many ways, when he spun that out in 2016, it had a foundation. And then over the next 4 years grew slowly but surely. And then when the pandemic hit, we were prepared. So we went totally virtual. Our clients were saying, we know you do world-class work. You've done work with us for a long period of time. We have no idea what's happening. Can you help us? And, it's incredible how year-long conversations, year-long relationships lead to them counting on you at a crazy time. And, you got to give credit to, again, our CEO, Bjorn, and our COO, Megan, who has taken us through a tremendous amount here to say we were ready when the pandemic happened and could really scale with it.
Keep up to date on the latest news and economic development with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's Arkansas Inc. newsletter. Each month, get the Arkansas Inc. newsletter, which spotlights the latest project wins and developments throughout the state, delivered to your email. The newsletter features major project announcements, company expansions and relocations, news articles, rankings, and more that highlight why Arkansas is a great state to do business. The newsletter is a snapshot of what AEDC has been working on and what we are following. The quarterly Tech Trends newsletter highlights the latest news in Arkansas's growing tech sector. You can learn about new Arkansas tech companies, computer science and cybersecurity initiatives, funding and venture capital announcements, and even more. AEDC offers 4 quarterly newsletters: the Food and Beverage Industry Digest, Aerospace and Defense Beacon, Timber Trends, and Tech Trends. To learn more or sign up for a newsletter, visit arkansasedc.com/news. And let me ask you another follow-up to that. So as somebody that's an adjunct over at a major research university, kind of a great school, but traditional type of place, there's a lot of people that will sit back and say higher ed is going to, as we know it, is going to die or is going to have to massively transform. How do you think about the role that companies like Abilitie and Abilitie play in really driving change in the way education is delivered? Is anybody going to go get a full-time MBA at a top 20 school or anywhere else when there's this kind of stuff available? What's your take?
Yeah, I think there still will be people who go and get those MBAs at the top 20 schools, who get those MBAs at a place where, it's really ingrained in the community and it really helps you get invested in that community. And you see this at universities like University of Arkansas. You see it at University of Indiana up in Bloomington. You see it at kind of the big universities on the coast as well. So I think there will still be a group that does that. I think that a lot of the things that used to be part of that package are getting disaggregated though. And so you can get business skills without doing that, right? For entrepreneurs who can't take a year off or 2 years off, we offer things that let you do it while you're continuing your job, right? And that comes with a different paradigm of, like, the old paradigm is go to school and then work, right? Now it's go to school, work, learn, work, learn, work. And we're part of that learn, work. And, I think tools like ours, we run our entire mini MBA virtually, just create an accessibility that never existed in the past, and of course, there's the pricing accessibility as well, where, a classic MBA would have cost you $200,000, ours costs $1,850, and we give scholarships out all the time, right? So, like, the accessibility is broadening. The time in their life when people go and get these skills is shifting. It's shifting to later in their careers. It's shifting to happening over and over again. And then the networks they work with are shifting as well, right? Like, more and more companies are working globally. You all are in Arkansas right now. I live in Colorado, but I'm in New Hampshire and I'm talking to you today. So things are shifting under our feet.
And so you mentioned kind of the entrepreneur who's working, and they're kind of the person that would be ideal for this. Is that your ideal student for a mini MBA? Like, what does that look like? Who are the mini MBA students?
Absolutely. We love having entrepreneurs, right? We love having them because they're so practical and they put these skills to work. If you learn finance, right, and you learn how to read an income statement better, you actually can understand your business better the next day, right? And so there's a real power to those entrepreneurs. What we really strive to do when we create our cohorts and we create our classes, we run a cohort in the spring and a cohort in the fall, is have some diversity. So the entrepreneurs are one group we have in there. We also like to have some people who are transitioning from one thing to another. So we have a good chunk of military veterans who are transitioning into the business world, teachers who are transitioning into the business world and saying, how do I bring these skills? And so that's a second group that we often have. And the third group we often have are people whose company is interested in doing more, and they don't offer the types of opportunities for them. So they say, I'm going to use my reimbursement. I'm moving from a director to a VP. I know I need skills. My company is going to pay for it. Let me do it. Right. And so we actually end up with a smattering of folk from big companies as well. So last cohort, we had someone from IBM, right? We have people from some of these big companies as well, sprinkling in there. And we think that mix actually leads to richer conversations.
Talk to us a little bit about how you think about your instructors or your faculty members. You know, as somebody that's been an adjunct for 15 years at a university, don't have a terminal degree. I've got a master's degree. As you know, there's this sort of caste hierarchy in every traditional university, tenure track people, and all the PhDs and whatnot. And yet, MBA and entrepreneurial MBA work is very much the realm of the practitioner. It's not
totally
in theory. Talk about how you bring faculty to the table that make this tangible and real and useful. And I'm not saying that you don't get that from a major university, but I'm really interested in your positioning on all that.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we hire much more on the practitioner side, exactly like you're saying. Man, we could talk forever, Jeff, about that caste system of that university, right? Being an adjunct, it's like crazy. They run the universities and they do all the student-facing things, and still they get treated as second-class citizens. And I think it's so sad. And so, from our faculty perspective, we really opt toward practitioners, people who have been there, people who have experience to join. Some of them are entrepreneurs, and oftentimes they're still entrepreneurs while they're doing it, right? They're independent contractors for us. Some of them are ex, partners at consulting firms, ex-partners at professional services who are coming together and saying, I learned a ton over the years. I want to actually help the next generation come through with this stuff. And so we are very practitioner focused in our faculty pool, first of all. And then second of all, pedagogically, about in terms of how we teach, right? We do a lot less, or we do almost no lecturing or anything like that. What we do is we have at the core of our curriculum simulations where people actually get to run businesses, right? Where people actually get to play the roles. And so then when they're debriefing with our practitioner faculty and learning a framework, whether it's giving feedback or Porter's 5 forces, they're actually in the context of something they just did. And so it becomes a conversation about that thing, and it becomes a conversation about how I apply it, as opposed to just, let me explain to you who Michael Porter was in 1973 when he sat down and said, there are 5 forces on a business. Right. 1, 2, 3. Like, I don't know, not my cup of tea.
It makes a lot of sense because it's entrepreneurship and running a business is a full contact sport. And
I love that.
There's no way to really understand it short of doing it. And simulation or going through the process of new venture creation, it's the only really way to learn it. So, I think that's very practical and it's great insight for our listeners to think about. If you want to add those skills, add them from the people that have walked that road. The example I give, and I know this will probably piss a lot of people off, but I'll give it anyway, is if I wanted to be an astronaut, I wouldn't necessarily want to have time in the simulator with somebody that only ever read the manual and studied it in the book. I would want to take those lessons from somebody that had actually flown and landed and experienced in-flight emergencies. Yeah. And that is the big difference, I think. This is it's not that there's anything wrong with theory, but you got to learn from the people that have actually walked that walk if you want to learn something that's going to be useful to you ultimately.
I love that. Well, man, Jeff, I love that. And I used to want to be an astronaut too, but I'm 6'6", so I don't fit in the shuttle. So for now, I just have to look at the James Webb pictures, which if you all haven't seen yet, are pretty awesome.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It really gives you a sense of how small and not very important we are in the scheme of the cosmos when you see those kind of shots.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
So Luke, you guys have had all this success. You've got all this exposure, and you're in blue chip accounts. What's the vision? What comes next? The next 3 to 5 years? Where are you going with it?
Absolutely. So I think on the enterprise side, we'll continue to grow, right? We'll continue to deepen accounts. We'll continue to work with our clients on more of their needs, right? If we currently do their rising leaders, move up to their executives. If we do their executives, do more. And, I think that comes from being a great client partner. As excitingly, and probably more excitingly to me, is our invited MBA is going to grow. It's our job here to disrupt the NBA. It's our job here to provide access to the world-class leadership development to people who can't spend a year of their life, 2 years of their life on a campus somewhere else, right? And so our goal is to grow that. Our goal is to grow that network of people who have gone through the Untitled MBA, to grow it to have thousands and thousands every year, to make that alumni network valuable, to make sure there's jobs on the other end of it, to make sure there's happy hours and connections and true network connections that a true MBA program does. And so our goal is to grow. Our goal is to continue to create an opportunity for people to have conversancy in the language of business, connections around the world, and confidence in how they build and run their company. And that's what our mini MBA Invited MBA is all about. It's made to be accessible. It's made to be affordable. It's made to be something that fits into your life. And so we could not be more excited about that.
Fantastic. Well, one of the ways we like to kind of land the plane is, and I'll give you an example of a really funny answer we got from the guy that founded Evernote. His name is Phil Libin. And it goes, the question goes something like this, and then I'll give you his answer and we'll see if you can top it. The question,
do my best.
If you had a time machine,
and
you take all this accumulated knowledge you have now and experience and all the stuff that you've done, consulting companies at McKinsey and at Abilitie, and go back in time, 8-10 years, maybe while you're the D1 basketball player, and give your younger self some advice, what would it be? Now, before you answer that,
oh man,
Phil, who could be up on stage in most places, said, well, if I had a time machine, I wouldn't care about any of this stuff, right? Because I'd have a time machine. I could go back and buy winning lottery tickets and invest in the right things. But anyway, having said that, what would you do if you could give your younger self some advice?
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. What a great question. If I had a time machine, where would I go back to and what would I do? I think I would probably go back to right after I graduated college and go there and say, don't worry about the credentials, worry about the experience. Right? I spent early years of my career, working at McKinsey, overworking myself. I loved it, but I was overworking myself. I spent years going back to Harvard Business School and had a couple $100,000 I had to pay off after that. Right. And the things that I remember, and those were wonderful experiences too, but the things I remember are kind of the experiences I got when I just put myself out there and I went and just tried to do things. And I was an entrepreneur in building things. And so I would say, don't worry about what it looks like on the resume, worry about what it feels like when you're living it. And I think I'd probably say that to myself as I was graduating college.
Amazing advice. Amazing advice. So if our audience wants to find out more about the company or more about you, want to connect, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. So you can always connect to me on LinkedIn. Just go to Luke Owings. I don't know if my picture has a mustache. I used to be as cool as Caleb, but I got rid of my mustache for a while.
There's always Photoshop if you want to add it.
That's right. Though those Photoshop ones don't always look great. But feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to be the venue, be the vantage point into our organization if you're interested. If you're interested in our program, go to invitedmba.com. You can request an application there. Again, if you mention this podcast, we'll happily give you a $200 tuition credit. The sticker price is only $18.50 as it is. And if that is still holding you back, let us know. And we give out a whole lot of scholarships. So come to invitedmba.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we would love to talk.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So can you still slam a basketball?
My nephews asked me that last weekend, and I looked up at the rim and I looked down and I said, if I do it once, I might end up with no Achilles for the rest of the summer. So I'm not going to try it once, but I don't know. It would be a stretch.
Man, thanks so much for coming on. It was great.
I appreciate y'all.
The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.